my first step ever podcast, and I am Ishani Nigam, your host and producer of the podcast. This podcast is made for all the disruptors around the globe who know that they are made for something, for that one thing, but fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection, the fear of fear itself holds us back at some point in time. But hey, those are the only milestones that if we cross, we are there to take our first steps. So, welcome on this journey with me where I interview people from across the globe so that they can share their story, their challenges, and you know that even you can surpass yours. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome on my first step ever. This is a podcast where you can not only find inspiration but actionable steps to take your first step towards your goals. And if you've been hanging around for a while, you know that what's the usual drill. And if you're new, you will get used to what we really try to do over here is to help you take your first step towards your goals. Now, it's never really easy, the behind the scenes, what people really do to get to their goals, to even begin. It's really challenging. And if you've been hanging in the boat, you know how hard it gets. But hey, chill out because that's how probably the process is. It is boring, it is, but very much important. But you can make things interesting for you with a mindset shift. So please join me in welcoming a really amazing guest speaker today who is doing exactly that for a lot of people. And before that, for her own self and her own story. And that's what we're here for. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie, all the way from Australia. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I am very excited. Before we kind of tap a little bit and dig deep into your journey, your story, which I'm very excited for, because you are addressing something which is very relevant. I'm going to give a bit of a sneak peek into your career, or a bit of a brief so far to our listeners. So Stephanie is a mentor, podcast host to a global audience across 5 different continents, and that's makes this podcast even more exciting because you have 2 podcasters over here, and the founder of Master of Achievement, Australia's first community for ambitious achievers. Wow, amazing. Now, I think in this podcast, we've also got to break down the definition of ambitious achievers because people have a lot of different, notions attached to it. But what does that really mean? We will be going through that. So Stephanie, while she was growing up, she always felt like her addiction to self development was weird. When she reached a level of growth, clarity, and achieved her goals, she did eventually plateau, feeling lost and accomplished all over again. Now this is something I think totally relate with. A lot of us can relate with. So this will be an interesting chat to understand that why does that happen and what's the mindset shift that we really require. So having overcome this several times, Stephanie's purpose is to now enable ambitious yet plateauing young professionals break free of stagnation to achieve fulfilled success through the art and the science of achievement principles and advanced mindset mechanisms. Now, I think this is, as I said at the very beginning, this is very relevant because all of us are there, in this sort of a hustle culture, setting specific goals, and once that is accomplished, we don't know what to go and do in our life ahead. So there's definitely a mindset shift, or an understanding that we need to have, that what it really takes to kind of live a life of purpose yet not feeling stagnated, which is very common. I would really like to get into your little world where you were growing up, the kind of mindset of the people you were surrounded with. Can you please take us through that?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were immigrants from Vietnam. They came to Australia after the Vietnam War, during the Vietnam War. And so I was always surrounded by the typical Asian parent mindset, invest in education, get good grades, do as I'm told, very hierarchical, very like, you need to know your place. You can't step out of your place. You can't go against the grain. So I think through that, I was taught from an early age that education, academic success was really, really important. And to be happy, you need to find stability. And obviously my parents never had that. They grew up in a very poor environment. And so having stability, and especially financial stability, was really important for them and for us. And they believed that that was to be achieved through education. And so growing up, it was very much about that, the academic success, how do we get the external sort of medals and certificates and trophies to show off that we're successful in our studies. And I think because of that, yes, it was really good because it made me understand how to work really hard. Like I developed a really strong work ethic through seeing my parents work really hard to give us the education and the life that we were able to live. But I also developed a really like an unhealthy and toxic relationship towards ambition and success. That was because, to be successful, you had to achieve all these things. And I think that I got sort of really sucked into achieving this, but not actually understanding why and whether it made sense to me and whether it aligned with my purpose. And so that, even though I achieved all these things, I got a really high mark in BCE or Year 12, got into a really good university, still didn't feel fulfilled with what I had achieved. They want to do it because they think that's the best way for you. But for us, being so privileged to live in a safe, developed country, we don't have to worry about security and whether there's going to be food on the table. We already had all those things. And my parents never did. They never worked because they were passionate about something. They just had to work to get money. But for us, living in a Western culture, those are the questions that are really important to us when we decide what job we're going to do or what university degree we're going to study.
Well, Stephanie, let me start by saying that you have very beautifully analyzed the situation for you at this point in time, because I know for a lot of us, it's kind of easy to kind of look back and say, this is what my parents did, this is what they thought, and I have, bear the brunt of their mindset. But I like the point where you've mentioned that that is what was best in their understanding, in their experience, in the situation that they were in. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what the best that you think in your situation, which is where you have all the exactly what you said, the basics are taken care of. So you are
Exactly.
not thinking from the mindset of survival. It's more that,
Yeah,
how you can grow and become the best version of yourself, or,
exactly.
kind of have that growth, the progression in your career, because you can think for about all those things because the basics are met. So thank you so much, first of all, for
Exactly.
underlining that. And the second very interesting thing that you mentioned, and I would like to kind of give kudos to you, is that it's very difficult to kind of accept, a lot of things. And you were very open in, kind of saying that you had very wrong definitions of success. Now everyone's
Yeah.
definition of success is different, but the
Yes.
ones that is driven with the goal of, being the best or competing with other people, or, the one that really doesn't satisfy your soul, is the one which is not the right one. And you identified that, you accepted it, and now on this podcast you are so generous to kind of open up and share with that a lot of people, so that anyone who's feeling that way, they can also, feel at ease and think, oh yeah, this happens with people. So from here,
Mm,
Stephanie, the amazing, strong, intelligent girl that you were, but stuck in this situation, you did very well in the field that you were, as you mentioned. Let me get to the point where I really really want to kind of ask you, how did it all start for you? When did you start recognizing that, okay, I have accomplished my goals, now what made you feel really restless?
I don't think that so from the outside, it probably seemed like I had accomplished all these goals, but inside, I didn't feel that way at all. And if you ask any of my friends at the time, I was so hard on myself. I had a goal. I wanted 95 in my ATAR, and I studied all the time. I'm talking like I didn't watch TV for 3 years. Like first thing I'd do when I wake up was study. And then after school, I'd go to the library and study. Like I had no life. And I was so hard on myself. Like if I had a test back and I got 89 instead of 90, that was the end of the world to me. Um, so for
Okay.
my ATAR, I wanted 95, but I got 93.7. And I wasn't able to celebrate all the work that I did to get 93.7 but all I could fixate on was the um, 1.3 mark that I didn't get, and for me, that was really tough. I think
Mm.
also because I had this really deep need to please everyone, and, we were taught to not question the status quo. So if my parents said that
Yes.
go and be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, work in commerce, work in corporate, that's the successful way to go. For me, I thought, okay, well, that's success. And that's what I did. I ended up studying commerce, and I tried really hard to get into KPMG because in my eyes, I was like, well, I get to dress up in the pencil skirt and my pointy heels and work in this fancy office that my parents never ever had the chance to work in, and they still haven't. Like, that to me, I was like, well, people are going to look at me and say, wow, you're so successful, Steph. And that's what I craved. But I never ever got accepted into an internship at KPMG. And it wasn't until maybe the last year I was like, I really need to be serious about getting an internship because everyone around me has internships. I ended up getting a summer internship at a mid-tier accounting firm, and it was the worst experience of my life. I was bullied and discriminated against in the sense that my manager, for some reason, would always sign me up to all these training sessions and not tell me. And then the person running that training session would message me going, Steph, where are you? Like, you're 10 minutes late, 20 minutes late. And I'm like, I didn't even know that this happened. And I remember clearly there was one day, it was the Christmas lunch. I didn't get invited to it and no one told me about it. And so during lunch, the whole team left and I was just made to sit there by myself the whole time. And it wasn't until someone else came and asked me like, why wasn't I there at that lunch that I realized what happened. And so from that experience, I was really, really traumatized. I was like, I do not want to work in corporate. Everyone's really mean. I've had such a bad experience. But because I, again, was looking at everybody else and going, everyone else has work experience. I need to get work experience so that I can get a good job in my commerce field. I ended up then working as a bookkeeper for my auntie's joinery business and hated that, but loved construction. And that's where I fell into, my passion of like my passion interest of construction. I was like, what is this industry? This is so cool. I want to work in
Incredible.
this industry. But again, there weren't many women 10 years ago, 15 years, like I didn't know any women back then who were working in construction. I didn't even know what jobs there were for a woman in construction. I had a very minute understanding of the construction industry, and my parents were completely against it. So then when I graduated, I actually got accepted into KPMG. But after a
Wow.
month, I quit and I was like, no, I really want to do construction. And I think that was the pivotal moment in my life where I went against the grain for the first time in a really big way because my parents couldn't understand why I had given up this opportunity to work at a tier one accounting firm to then work in, the dirty, sexist construction industry. Like they just couldn't understand it. And a lot of people didn't understand my decision either. And I think that was like the first time that I really had to trust my gut. I don't know why there was just this really deep feeling in my gut where I was like, I really, really want to work in construction. And if I give KPMG up, I'm happy to deal with the consequences of it. Like I need to give this a shot. So the first 2 years after I quit KPMG, I was really trying to make it in the construction industry without the construction degree. And it was 2 years of, people asking me like, Steph, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? Why are you doing this? Why did you give this up? Oh, if you were still at KPMG, you wouldn't be so tired from working at this toxic workplace. Or if you worked at KPMG, you wouldn't be sweating on site. You would be working in an air conditioned room. And so, yeah, it was a lot of people telling me a lot of things and making me doubt myself. But I think from that experience, from that really small experience, that is what inspired this snowball effect of where I am today, because I was I really had to trust myself that this is the decision. I don't know if it was the right decision or the wrong decision, but in my gut, I just knew I need to trust myself to prove all these people wrong and to prove myself right.
Wow, Stephanie, I read this somewhere that a decision is never right or wrong when you're taking it. Once
Yeah.
you've taken a decision, it's your responsibility to make it right for yourself.
Yeah,
you know
100%.
and in the end of the day, at the end of the day, if it did not turn out right, that's still your decision, and that's a
Yeah.
learning from it, and at least you do not have the regret that you did not follow your intuition or your gut. So very quickly, I want to kind of pick some things from what you've just mentioned. There's lots to unpack. Sorry for what you had to go through, discrimination, being bullied, being cornered is the worst feeling ever. I have been through that
Mhm.
as well. And for a lot of
Mhm.
people who either migrate or even within their own countries and corporates, and I'm not wanting to label corporates, but that's where often we see these cases. Uh, it happens, but
Mhm.
if that happens to you and it makes you feel really really bad, then you always have a choice. You always
Mhm.
do have a choice, unless it's really difficult for you to to kind of leave that job because you really need the money. So
Mhm.
if you have the choice, then take that decision, to move on. And I like the fact that you had that calling of somehow you tumbled upon construction while doing
Mhm.
something else, and then you had the strong feeling of this is where I want to be. Because for a lot of us, we are still on that journey. For
Yeah.
whoever listening to us is still on the journey, please keep on going on that journey, because maybe someday
Yeah.
you will stumble upon a feeling like Stephanie did as well. So I'm happy for you, Stephanie. And a
Thank
great
you.
thing as well that you had a lot of people saying a lot of things to you while you were yourself being very brave, being a bit fearful from inside, but having that brave, a face and your mindset that no, I have to take this step. It's very difficult in this fragile mindset and situation where you have your or people who are very close to you, or even the people in your surrounding, that they have this very strong voice saying you're doing wrong, it's going to fall flat on your face. In this
Mhm.
situation, I think the best thing that you also, I think, must have told yourself is that it's the most logical decision that you take. It's a calculated risk also that you take. Sometimes it's very intuitive, but sometimes if you're very very confused, the logical decision is to just write down what's the worst that can go with this particular situation.
Yeah.
And when you write it down, you understand it's not that bad.
Yeah, I
I
think,
mean,
like,
yeah.
I don't know why at the time there was so much pressure to make the right decision, and it's just like, what is the right decision? There's no right decision. There's just a decision that will take you forward, whether it's in
Mhm.
the whether it leads you to a place where it's closer to like that feeling of completeness to you and full confidence, or whether it doesn't. It's still a step forward. And for me at that time, I was just like so fixated on the right step. Like, if I take this step, this will lead me to being a graduate at a tier one, which will then lead me to a promotion, which will then lead me to a whatever. And it was just like, I just thought it had to be like one step after the other step after the other step, and it's the same step. But in life, it's not
Right.
like that at all. It's, you take a step and you might detour a little bit, and then you might go, okay, this is not really for me. And then you take a step back, and it's just like, you're not losing time. Because I actually read this quote where it said, you're, for example, you're 30 and you want to study a 4-year course, but you're scared that you're going to lose 4 years by studying the wrong degree. But in 4 years' time, you're going to be 34 anyway. So
Yeah.
just do it. And yeah,
Absolutely
like
right. Yeah.
you're going to lose that time anyway. So if it's something that you really want to do, just do it, because then like, okay, that wasn't the right decision, or yeah, that decision felt right, and now it's opened doors for me in a different type of way.
Absolutely. I think, Stephanie, what you're saying right now, and if I can maybe add a 2 cents of my 2 cents in that, is that, this is your life. You get to make the choices to create the quality of life that you want. Whatever
Mhm.
choices that you take, that will be the quality of your life. That is the kind of memory, the story, the visual maps that you are creating and leaving behind for yourself. So yes, please, take that chance,
Yeah,
make calculative risks.
yeah.
And yes, moving on from here to the question that I'm really excited to kind of, ask is, yes, so please let us know, how did that from here, from this point onwards, how did your journey, what were the first steps of your amazing community that you have created, of the you're the founder of Master Achievement and your podcast
Mhm.
host as well. So if you can please take us through the top three things that you feel were the highlights in the journey to actually begin with that journey.
So for me, I fell into mentorship, I guess, because of my traumatizing experience in the workplace. So after that experience in the mid-tier accounting firm, I really wanted to prove to everyone that I had a chance in construction. And the only place that would take me was this really small, like mum and dad company. And it was a really, really toxic workplace. Like I got PTSD from that workplace, and that's not something, like mental health wasn't something that I really took seriously, to be honest. I don't normally get depressed. I have never suffered from anxiety. Well, like at the time, I had never suffered from anxiety, and I didn't know what PTSD was. And so after coming out from that really toxic construction environment, I developed PTSD in the sense that every time I got an email or I got a call or I got a text message, I started getting anxiety, and I thought someone was going to call me to yell at me or to say that I did a really shit job, to swear at me, because that was the environment that I was in. I tried to go to all the counseling and the therapy and psychologists and all that, and it didn't really help me. Like I felt like we were going around in circles, but I knew that it was an issue that I had to address to move on and to succeed in construction. If construction was something that I really wanted to thrive in, I had to overcome this trauma that I had experienced. And so one day, I don't even know how it happened, but life coaching came up on Google to overcome trauma. And that was my first experience with coaching and mentorship. So then after I worked through that with my first sort of coach mentor, I ended up, taking that step, moved to Sydney to study construction management. I was like, I really want to do this seriously. I feel like super motivated. I really want to create impact and, be an example that construction doesn't always have to be toxic. Like, even though I have experienced all those toxic and negative experiences, I can still come out as a person with a really good heart. And I want to be that change in construction. And when I started that, I then met my now mentor, and she just opened my eyes to a different world, and it's like, what's the point in us? I think for me, what I struggled with most is I'm very multi passionate. I have so many interests. Like, I want to do podcasting, I want to do sewing, I want to paint, I had all these interests. I like doing Excel, and I like designing things on Canva and PowerPoint. And I didn't understand how all that translated into a passion. Passion is something that we hear about all the time. It's like, if you find your passion, you'll never have to work another day in your life because you're doing everything that you love, that whole mantra, that whole narrative. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to find out what my passion was, because I just thought, if I know what my passion is, I'm going to be happy forever. And
Mm-hmm.
working with my mentor, we went through all that. It was just like, hang on, Steph, let's take a step back. Why are you studying all these courses? Why are you doing the Cert 4? Why are you doing this certification? Like, what is it for? Why are you doing it? And I couldn't answer that. And I remember another thing that really shocked me. She goes, introduce yourself to me. And I said, hey, I'm Stephanie. I'm a cadet at blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I don't want to know your job title. Introduce yourself to me. Like, who are you? Who are you outside of the job title? And I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
answer that. I couldn't say, hey, I'm Stephanie. I'm a really passionate, bubbly, confident. I couldn't answer those questions because I had been so, I guess, like, I dug myself so deep into this persona of
Yeah,
associating
the
myself with
titles that
my
you're carrying.
my
Yeah,
title. Yeah, and
yeah.
that, I think, was the first step for me, like a serious first step for me to take a step back and go, all right, let's do the inner work first.
Yeah.
If we want to use the analogy of construction, what are my foundations? Like, what is my purpose? What is my mission? What are my values? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I like? What don't I like? Have a strong foundation first. And then from there, you can understand, all right, this is what you're driven by. So then what does success look like to you? What does it mean to you? How do you know when you've reached that success? What does success
Hmm.
feel like to you? These questions are really tough. Like, they're not questions you
Yep.
sit down on a Wednesday night and go, oh, let me answer this question. What does success look like to me after a 10-hour
Right.
working day? Yeah, because I had done that work, then I realized, like, wow, I can set really meaningful goals that when I achieve them actually fulfill me because they're aligned to why I'm doing it. And that's what Master of Achievement is all about. It's, how do you understand what your actual drivers are and what you actually really want so that you can achieve fulfilled success, not just success defined by someone else or something else, but success that's meaningful to you. Because when you really know why you're doing it, you don't have to compare yourself to the next person. You don't have to compare,
Absolutely.
you know, I don't have an internship. Okay, cool. Like, I don't really need to compare myself to someone else because I know what journey I'm on and I understand the uniqueness of it. And yeah, so the top three tips that I have, so that was a really long way of going to the top three tips,
No, that
is,
was very, very important for us to understand.
yeah, you know, firstly, you need to go on the journey. And I go through this with my mentees and grow out of your limiting beliefs, right? What limiting beliefs do you have currently that are holding you back? Um,
Right.
if money wasn't an issue and you couldn't fail, what would you do? How would you spend your time? Because
Hmm.
these questions, they help you clarify why you're doing what you're doing. So the second point for me is to join an accountability circle. This is something that I didn't really value in my journey that I wish I had. And so accountability circle is a group of 3 or 4, ambitious individuals who you trust, and they're resilient, they're motivated, they all have growth mindsets, and they're going to be honest with you. You guys all keep each other accountable. The amount of progress that I've made by creating an accountability circle with people who are not like-minded, but like-valued, we don't have to be like-minded. We don't have to be in the same field or the same industry, but we all want to achieve and we all feel accountable and responsible to keep each other accountable on that journey. Like, I've made so much progress in the last year than I ever had in the last 5 years without one.
Right.
And for all my mentees, the accountability circle is a must, because
Right.
you can't and you shouldn't be on the journey by yourself. Nothing's done by
Hmm.
yourself. And the third is to properly invest in yourself. And by investing in yourself, I'm not
Yes.
talking about, like, treat yourself, spend a few $100s to get your hair dyed or your hair cut, or, buy a few palettes from Mecca and get your nails painted. Like, I'm talking about properly investing in yourself, investing in the things that help you upskill yourself and grow your mind, because that you can never ever remove the knowledge and the power and the self-development that you make in yourself. So investing in yourself might look like doing a course, investing in mentors, investing in programs, investing in workshops, going to seminars, expanding your network, with, you know, valuable people, not just everyone, but being really selective with who's in your network, reading the books. So yeah, the three things: ask yourself the hard questions to find your purpose, join an accountability circle, and properly invest in yourself.
Stephanie, thank you so much for, taking us through again. This is something unique that I find in you, that you do take us through your journey, but you take us through the very core emotion of you, while you were in that situation, and what made you feel that that maybe something that you were doing wrong or something that happened wrong with you, and you were able to speak up about that as well, and how that journey happened for you. And I was really going to ask you about, what does the Australian community of ambitious achievers really mean, and what's the
Mhm.
science and the art behind, but you've already taken us through that in such a beautiful way, that why, what's the difference between, being an ambitious achiever, because it's sometimes it is taken in a very negative connotation, that someone
Yeah.
who's a very ambitious, they don't care about anything else, they are in a very a toxic hustle culture, they're not taking care of their health.
Mhm.
But this is what exactly makes things different. It's about uh, making fulfilled goals, making fulfilled decisions, and I always tell my listeners, start with whatever you can and whatever you have. If you do
Mm.
not have the means to invest in a mentor, that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you cannot learn from anywhere. Start with books,
Yeah.
start with videos, start with even just, listening to podcasts like these,
Yeah.
and once you're on the journey, you will be able to, get to a place where you start making investments. So the mindset of
Yeah.
investment is basically to not just allocate money into things that help you, become better, but also your focus, your time invested in
Mhm.
that particular thing. Because as small as, our time, our focus, we just want to give a focus to everything that makes us feel happy, entertaining
Mhm.
all the time, binge watching certain things, which is fine at
Yeah.
sometimes, but would you like to invest that focus and that particular time in something? And if you're
Mhm.
able to, invest in your courses, mentor, that is amazing. So whatever works for you from wherever you can make a start. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Stephanie, for being here, really brilliantly, being so honest and bold about things. You definitely have had a journey that's your unique journey, but how beautiful it is that you've been able to, carve out your niche and where you have come. And if Stephanie can do that, my friends who are listening to us, if you've been in a difficult situation, please,
Mhm.
please don't be hard on yourself that maybe you deserved it, something's wrong happening to you because you did
No.
something. Yeah, it's not
No.
that. It happens to help you see that the different sides
Yeah.
of the world, but you will also see the good side of the world if you take the reins in your hand. Your choices make the quality of your lives. As I always request our guest speakers to leave our listeners with the quote or saying before we take your leave.
My favorite quote is universe, show me how good life gets.
Wow, wow, this is so,
Yeah.
so beautiful and deep. And it's like that, a little twinkle in the eye and the positive attitude that there is
Yeah.
something bigger, better, if not bigger, better, but there is something that you can always work towards, and everything's
Yeah.
good. Whatever you have is good, but you can even find more treasure if you would like to maybe go forward. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for
Exactly.
being on my first step ever, being so open and honest, and introducing us to your amazing Australia's first community for ambitious achievers. And also, if you are interested to follow Stephanie, I will leave the links in the show notes. You
Mhm.
can go and listen to her podcast. And please start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. Until next time, I'll see you with
Mhm.
another amazing story, another amazing first step so that you can take your first step. Thank you. Please do give ratings and please do write your comments. And you can directly reach out to me on my first step ever _IN. That's my Instagram handle. A little about myself. I have always loved performing on stage, acting, speaking, and just emoting myself. So I use these mediums different ways so that I can connect with people, help them, empower them, infotain them, which is to inform them and entertain them. If you would like to collaborate for any opportunities, more than welcome to connect with me on my Instagram handle. Thank you.